Yeah, we knocked out Maddie before the child. Here we go.
I'm going to get Kelly.
Kelly be good. Utah fans, good evening and welcome into the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show. Tonight's show and every show brought to you by our friends at Smith's Food and Drug. Low prices and market fresh. Coming to you live tonight from the Eccles Football Facility here on campus during Rivalry Week. We've got a good show for you tonight. Man, what do we have tonight? The win over Colorado, the Pac-12 South title. Francis Bernard's going to swing by and talk to us tonight. We've got the Associate and Assistant Directors of Player Personnel, Sam Morissette and Keegan Anderson, coming by. We'll talk BYU Week and other special guests that will swing by tonight. If you want to reach the program, comment or a question for Coach, you can do it pretty easily tonight. 877-353-0700 is your text number, or you can just simply tweet at me at ESPN 700 Bill. Now the name of the guy who's on the marquee here tonight, head coach Kyle Whittingham. How are you?
Doing good, Billy. How are you?
Doing great. It's been a fun couple of weeks for Utah football.
It has, and it was great to see our guys come out and get the win on Saturday, although we started slow. It was 7-0 right early in the game, and then proceeded to score 30 unanswered, which got the game back in control in our favor, and it was good to close out our part of the deal. We still had to have some help, and knew that we had to rely on Oregon, or if that didn't happen, Arizona the next week. But fortunately for us, it was just that same night that we were able to claim the South Championship.
Let's go back to the morning of the game. We get there a couple of hours early. The broadcast team, we get the booth set, we get into our pregame, and we're there. There's no snow on the field about 3 hours beforehand, spitting a little bit of rain. And then about an hour later, a little bit of snow starts to fall. And then about a half hour after that, your guys arrive. And then more snow starts to fall. And one by one, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, guys are rolling out of the locker room without shirts on. It's 28 degrees and snowing in Boulder, Colorado, and these guys are all out. That's when I kind of had a good idea that your guys had a good frame of mind, Kyle, and they were ready to play because they were embracing the cold and having a lot of fun in the pregame.
Yeah, they had a great mindset, and that's just something that they like to do from time to time. It's happened in years past where you get in a snow game and they get so excited about it, they get a little bit giddy and get out there with their shirts off, and it was good to see. Like you said, it was an indication that they weren't going to let the weather or anything else bother them.
First couple of series, a little slow offensively. You get down 7-0 in that game, but then you start to crank it up a little bit. Halftime, you're tied. The message, I know Jim Harding sent the guys out with a message at halftime. He said, guys, we may have 5 possessions here in the second half. We have to make them count. Well, you had 7. But the first 5 of those 7 you scored on, 3 field goals, 2 touchdowns. So clearly that message sunk in.
It did. We played much better in the second half, particularly the third quarter. That was the quarter that really was the difference in the game. And I think we outscored them 17-zip in that quarter. And then, just fourth quarter was, just getting the clock run out for us. But for whatever reason, it was tough sledding in the first half. And not a lot of running room in there. And then second half, the offensive line started to open up some holes, and Armand got underway, and Jalen Dixon and Jason Shelley connected a few times. So a lot of good stuff in that second half.
If you scouted these guys and recruited these guys, you saw a lot of those connections at Lone Star High School in Frisco.
Yes.
Those 2 guys together. How did you grade Jason out? Second start, this one on the road in some weather conditions, and I can't imagine Jason played in a ton of snow in North Texas.
No.
So how did he play in your mind?
He played very well, and the number one thing, 2 weeks in a row now, took care of the football, 0 turnovers, and we're really tough to beat when we don't turn it over, as most teams are. But he threw for a good chunk of yards, 200 plus. Did a nice job in the run game as far as decision making, and so couldn't ask anything more for these 2, out of redshirt freshmen for these 2 games that he's played for us.
Well, the offense played terrific, but boy, the defense was lights out. You had a Pac-12 best in your 8 years, only 196 yards of total offense given up. You limited Steven Montez. The run game was 34 carries for 34 yards. And 2 guys really jumped out to me. Everybody played well. But Max Tupai continues to play well for you, and Francis Bernard stepped in for Chase Hansen and had a great day.
He did, and you're exactly right. Those 2 guys were outstanding. Then Bradley and I was the guy that was right up there with them. We had some really good performances. But, we from start to finish, we controlled the game defensively. We let them crease us one time on a run when we were slanting and didn't slant exactly correct, but those guys played hard and really controlled the game from start to finish.
I want to ask you, and I don't want to ask you about the specific call, but I'm curious, how do you handle targeting calls after the game and with the league? Is that something you deal with? Is that something Mark Harlan deals with? Because I know in many cases they're borderline. In this case, upon review, it was not. But I'm curious how you guys as a staff in the NFL, they send reports to the league office. I didn't know if you guys did that or if that's something Mark Harlan does.
I think Mark has got involved with that a time or two, and Jeff Rudy a time or two will send something in, but I just move on. I don't even worry about it. It doesn't really accomplish anything, and regardless of what they say, we were right, we were wrong, blah, 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 nothing. It doesn't really
You mean you don't
anything.
Like that thank you, Kyle?
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And by the way, you were right afterward.
Waste of my time.
Yeah,
Waste of my time. Got more important things to do, and they're out there, doing the best they can as officiating crews, and we just, after the game, we just move on. But as far as, how we handle we teach it on a daily basis as far as trying to make sure we're doing the thing, tackling right and doing things right in that regard.
Well, the good news is you'll have Chase Hansen back for
That's
this
great
week.
news.
If it was going to happen, you want Francis Bernard to step up and play as well as he did, and you want that penalty to happen in the first half, not the second half.
Exactly.
One other guy I wanted to touch on before we move on to clinching the South, Matt Gay. On a bad weather condition day, he just continued to do what he does. He kicks a 51-yard field goal into the wind, and then you gave him a shot at a 56-yarder in the wind, and I think he hit it about 55 and a half. It just came up a little short, but again, special teams player of the week in the conference.
Right, and that's 4 times now, and I don't know if that's ever happened where a guy has won that award, offense, defense, or special teams 4 times in one season, and so that's a great testament to how, what kind of kicker he is, and he would have hit that 56-yarder. He just stubbed the ground before he hit the ball. He took a little divot there, and so he didn't get all of it, but because that thing was right on the money. But it's a shame he's not in the Lou Groza Award finals. And
I don't know how that happens. He's the defending award winner.
The problem is they do that, make those decisions like 2/3 of the way through, and he just started to catch fire. The last third of the season, and I shouldn't say catch fire, but his opportunities started to come, and he had 21 straight makes, and I don't know how you don't. There's a flaw in that system.
Right.
I can tell you that right now. There's a flaw in the system because he's one of the top. If he's not one of the top 3 kickers in the country, I don't know who is. And so that's a shame that he's not involved with that. And on the positive note, Mitch is in the finals for the Ray Guy Award for the 3rd time, which has never been done.
Exactly. I was about to say there have been 2-time award winners, but nobody's ever won the Ray Guy 3 times.
Right. Well, no one's even been to the finals 3 times. So win it or not. But that's just a really strong statement about our specialists and how they approach things. They're so professional and they do things. If you knew how hard they worked all practice long, they're not with the regular guys, but they're off doing their thing and working constantly the entire practice.
Well, you guys get the win in the morning, and so you fly home, and that's one of the nice things about the morning game. You get home, you get to settle in just a little bit, and then you sit back. By the way, I never got my text as to where Scott Mitchell and I had our pizzas, and we were all ready to go. Come watch the game with you. But where did you watch the game? Who did you watch it with? And what was that like? Was there any anxiousness on your part as you're watching Oregon?
There was a lot of anxiousness. Yeah, we watched it over at my daughter's house. My 2 grandbabies, my granddaughter, my grandson, 2 of my 3 grandkids, and we were glued to it, watching every snap. And it was killing when we dropped that touchdown pass, the clear, easy touchdown pass that. And then the fumble stuff, and it was agonizing. It was, felt really good for a while. Then all of a sudden it got tight. Then, it was gut wrenching, but it turned out okay.
When the zeros finally hit and Oregon has won the game, what's going through your mind?
It was finally that our team, our guys, and I was so proud for our guys and so happy for them because they had worked so hard for this.
Is there any special satisfaction because of the schedule? You guys had to play the toughest schedule in the league this year. You had some late season adversity with key injuries. For this particular group, and again, you've touched on this, it's a small group of seniors, but it's a pretty good small group of seniors. Any special satisfaction of getting it with this particular group?
Without a doubt. It's a great group of seniors. And, we only have 11 of them, and as I mentioned, time and time again, it's the smallest group of seniors that we've ever had here since I've been at Utah, scholarship-wise. And to see them fight through what they fought through and the schedule you mentioned, they just kept their heads down and kept working and just kept grinding and just found a way to get it done.
We'll ask you about the senior class and sending these guys out Saturday night at home, final home game for the seniors. There'll be more games to come. a conference championship game in a week, and then, of course, a bowl game someplace. But we'll talk about that coming up. So one of our special guests here tonight, you know what this week is. It's the BYU game, and that means it's the Deseret First Dual game, brought to you by our friends at Deseret First Credit Union. Senior Vice President over at Deseret First, Trina Anderson. How are you?
Great.
This is one of your favorite weeks of the year, isn't it?
It's crazy.
You love Trina's such a sports fan, and she was. Were you on the ground level when all this began 12 years ago?
Yeah. It's been my project all along.
Was this your baby and one of your ideas? So where does it come from?
You know, we were doing some sponsorships with BYU, and we said, you know what, we want to do something up at the U as well, and we just had some folks that said, let's kind of put our arms around the rivalry, and so we just put it out there. We met with both athletic directors, and we just got it all in play. We have 12 sports where both schools compete head-to-head, and we've been doing it for 12 years. This is our 12th season. Each sport has a point total, so football always has the most points attached to it. All the other sports right now are just 3 points. Football's 5, and at the end of the season, there's obviously a winning school.
And there's and it's not just a contest, but there's a good scholarship check awarded to the individual sports when they win, plus an overall check too, right?
Correct. We do $1,000 for each sport. The winning school gets a $1,000 athletic scholarship for students each sport, and then at the end $5,000 to the winning school. So last year we paid $13,000 to Utah Athletics and only $4,000 to BYU.
Yeah, Utah won last year, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Trina, 6-5 all time?
Utah has won 6 years, and BYU has won 5. So it's still pretty close, but hey, Utah's got the head up here.
It's not quite like your streak in football right now, Kyle, but still it's a good streak nonetheless. Yep. Why is it important for you guys at Deseret First to be kind of part of not only this series, but be affiliated with both Utah and BYU?
It's Utah.
Yeah.
It's the state of Utah, and it's a rivalry, and it's one of the best rivalries. I was with Scott Mitchell today, and he said it's the third highest rivalry in the United States, and so we just love to be a part of it. We love going to both universities, but you know what? When we're here in red, we are red.
And you will see Trina and the Deseret First folks out at Rice-Eccles Stadium coming up on Saturday night. Anybody wants any information about the Deseret First Duel, where can they find it?
Yeah, dfcu.com. Down at the bottom, just look for the logo, and you click on it, and you could get a list of all the dates, the scores, past totals, and everything.
And if I'm not mistaken, Utah's down a little early this year. I think volleyball and soccer lost. So
it's 6-0 right now.
But football
is 5 points. So
it's 5. Okay,
yes.
So they can pull them back instead this weekend. Trina, thanks for coming by.
Appreciate it.
We'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Great.
Deseret First Duel coming up on Saturday night at Rice-Eccles Stadium between Utah and BYU. We'll take a quick time out when we come back. A little bit about the rivalry week and a little bit about BYU. And we'll have another special guest coming up as well. All right here for the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show, presented by Smith's, and right here from you. was a pretty solid pass by Jason Shelley. It was an unbelievable catch by Samson Nakul, one of the Pac-12 plays of the weekend, and that got Utah on the board for the first time. We welcome you back into the Coaches Show tonight, presented by Smiths and also presented by our friends at Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light, official sponsors of Utah Athletics, reminding you to enjoy responsibly. That was a nice grab by Samson Nakul.
That was a great grab, and that was one of the things that got us going, got us some momentum, and a nice one-handed catch and a great spot to put the ball by Jason Shelley.
We'll have our team awards coming up here in just a bit. Francis Bernard's going to join us in the next segment coming up. I want to talk about this week for you, Kyle. Let's walk back in time. What was your earliest memory that you became aware of this rivalry? Because your family is one of the families that's so it kind of defines it. Both sides, coaching, playing, the whole thing. Yeah. What's your earliest memory?
Well, I can say our family has been involved in this rivalry more than any other family in the history. I mean, as far as hands-on, in the game as a player, coach, whatever. And so we've got like 40-something years invested in this thing. So that's one little bit of trivia. But I think my first memory was my father's first year coaching down in Provo, which was like 73 or 74.
Okay.
And I remember, I think the game that year was up here. And I think I can't remember who won the game.
Okay.
I can't remember, but I remember sitting up here in the bleachers in a snowstorm.
At old Rice Stadium.
Old Rice Eccles, yeah, or Rice Stadium.
Rice Stadium back then, yeah.
And then since that time, I think there may not be any years where we weren't either a player or a coach as the Whittingham family. Either my dad was either coaching there or here. I was either as a player there, GA there, or here. My brothers have been both spots.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were up in Idaho, your brothers were playing still down in Hawaii,
right.
correct?
So we've had a person directly involved in the rivalry for, I'm pretty sure, 40. What is 73 to now? Is that 45?
Yeah.
45 straight years.
That's an unbelievable streak.
There might have been a year or two where we weren't, but if there weren't, it was only a year or two.
Is there a moment or a memory throughout all those years, as a kid, as a player, as a coach, whatever they might have been, that stands out above the others for you in this rivalry?
Well, I'd say as a player, you always remember the most. In my senior year, when we played at home, down in Provo, and Utah had a great team that year. They were, I think, 10-1 coming into the game, or 9-1, something. Anyway, It was for the championship. It was for the championship, and they had Del Popcorn Rogers and Steve Clark and a bunch of good players. A phenomenal O-line. I think McBride was the O-line coach, as a matter of fact. In fact, I'm pretty sure he was. Don Eck was on the line, and so. And Popcorn went on a power play like 80 yards the first snap, right out of the gate, right by me, just whizzed right by me, and I thought, oh man, this could be a long day. But then we proceeded to let Jim McMahon take over, and it ended up like 50-something to 28 or something like that. But that's probably the most memorable as a player, as a coach, probably as the D coordinator, 3-0, down there in a snowstorm, and as a D coordinator, you dream of shutouts, and we were able to win the game 3-0 that year.
I can remember that. I wasn't the voice of the Utes at that time yet. I was actually working at KSL, so I've got a weird part of this. I've seen both sides of this as well, too. But one of my jobs at KSL that year was to get post-game sound from the opposing head coach, and I snuck into the locker room that day, and I saw Urban present you the game ball that day. I remember you were the one who got the game ball.
That's
that 3-0 game.
I had forgot about that, but that was like I said, one of the highlights.
Yeah, there's so many great things. I tell people all the time, this is one of the best and most unique rivalries you'll find anywhere. Is there a big difference to you playing this game at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year?
Yeah, there is. And it's, when you're in Pac-12 play and the situation we're in now, with the championship, fortunately, the situation we're in now, it is quite a bit different. It is familiar because that's when it was always played, back in, when we were in the Mountain West and the WAC prior to that. But lately, other than the bowl game, it's been in the first 3 weeks of the season or so, and so that's what you kind of got used to. And so now it's got a different feel, but a familiar feel because, like I said, it was what used to be all the time.
And how does the feel now with one of your good friends coaching on the other sideline?
Yeah, that changes things as well. With Kalani and myself being as close as we are, and we've talked throughout the course of the season, and so that puts a different spin on it as well. So it's constantly changing and evolving, but the one constant is it's still the rivalry game.
Just give me a quick thought on this Cougar team. You've begun to scout them this week a little bit.
Yeah.
Every year is a little bit different. What stands out about this team?
Well, first of all, the quarterback change. Had them, change schematically. They did some things differently when that happened and gravitated a little bit different direction than when The first guy was QBing, and so that's that's something that we've got to account for, because you got to account for the whole season. Everything they've done all year they can do, whenever. So you got to prepare for everything. But running back by committee, there hasn't been really a featured back. They've got 3 or 4 guys that have carried the load, and same with wide receiver. The wide receivers are pretty spread evenly with the receptions, and so we're just studying them hard. And Coach Scally and the defensive crew and Coach Taylor and his offensive crew are in there round the clock, just trying to put together a way to slow them down or score points, as the case may be.
We'll talk a little bit more in specifics later on about BYU. First, though, another special guest joining us tonight. You know that CR England's a big supporter of you guys.
Yeah.
They haul your gear across the country.
They do. They do a great job, and we've been friends of the family. My kids have been friends of the England kids, and so that's a relationship we know well.
Chad England's here with us. He's CEO of England Shipping and Trucking, and you guys are, this time of year, not only great supporters of Utah, but you're great supporters of this community, Chad, in many, many ways. You guys are right now helping to try to fight hunger this time of year, aren't you?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And, of course, Coach, it's good to be here with you tonight. And, so we are motivated by the fact that 1 in 6 kids across our country goes hungry, goes without knowing where their next meal is going to come from. So at the beginning of the year, we set a goal. We said in 2018, we're going to try and feed 1 million hungry kids. And so we made a commitment that for every load we deliver, we will feed a hungry child. And we partner with 20 food banks across the country, and so we're very proud of that effort. And because of that, we've decided to get involved with the food drive up at the University of Utah. And every year, the Alumni Association, the Student Alumni Board, and the MUS put together this food drive, and that started 25 years ago. So at that time, 25 years ago, this thing started. You know what else, Coach, happened 25 years ago to this day? Major turning point in the program's history.
I couldn't tell you that.
It was the first 34-31 game.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that's when Chris Jurgensen kicked that field goal. And
was that long ago?
Yeah, that was 25 years ago. Since then, the Utes have won 17 of 25. That year, they went to their first bowl game, and you guys went to your first bowl game. I was there too, in 30 years, and what a day that was. But that was also the start of the food drive, and so every year that's been going on. And the reason I'm here is to let you know that on Saturday there will be 60 volunteers from CR England, from the university organizations that I mentioned. We'll be collecting food from anybody that comes up there, but more importantly, bring your cash, bring your checks. We would love to collect to help fight hunger. And so look for us on your way into the stadium. We'd like to do some good, and this is an important part of this rivalry and tradition. So let's do it.
Yeah, you'll see the CR England folks, the Alumni Association, the Student Alumni Board, the MUS. They'll be at all the different portals collecting, and again, cash is always king, isn't it? It always goes and spends and can get you whatever you need. Food
a lot easier to carry too. So bring your cash.
So if you do that, remember, bring a little pocket change, grab whatever you got in the ashtray out of the car or your cup holders, bring it into the stadium with you on Saturday, and it goes for a really good cause. And CR England's been part of this for a long, long time. Chad, thanks for coming by.
Hey,
today.
Thanks for having me. Go Utes. Go.
Absolutely,
Thanks.
Chad. Thank you so much. Our show tonight also being brought to you by Pepsi. They sponsor the touchdowns every week. They're Code Red touchdowns. Pepsi's a proud supporter of Utah athletics and Utah football. Coach, coming up next, we're going to talk to a guy that is new to your team this year, but he's made a pretty big impact in a short time.
Huge impact, and we are very grateful to have him on our football team. And he worked a lot of hard hours getting himself eligible and for the transfer, satisfy the transfer rules and regulations, and he got after it, and it was no easy task, and he's to be commended for what he did to get here.
Francis Bernard will join us next on the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show, presented by Smith's, right here from Learfield. big plays we're hoping for Utah football. Francis Bernard with that interception against UCLA. Had a big game on Saturday, and he joins us right now on the Coaches Show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. So how's the transition gone? You leave that other school.
Yeah.
You had to sit out a year. That had to be tough for you, a guy that loves to play football, to have to be away from the game and really kind of away from big-time school, taking classes outside.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, but I knew what I was getting myself into, and so as soon as I stepped away from the school I was at and kind of transitioned into going the junior college route, I just kind of put my head down and just got to work.
Harder to work in the classroom when you're not playing football, or harder to work in the classroom when you're playing football?
I'd say when you're not playing football, you're just not as motivated. It's it was super hard because there wasn't people there to help me completely, and I was just constantly having to self-motivate myself every single day, so it was hard.
What was the hardest part about leaving for you and coming to a new school? You were established there. You started as a running back, but you were a really good linebacker. What was the toughest part about leaving that and having kind of that unknown for a minute or two?
I would say just kind of the relationships that I built with the teammates that I had over there. A lot of them had already graduated, but there's a few that are still there that I'm super close with, but that's probably it.
It was maybe one of the worst kept secrets around that Francis Bernard might be coming to the University of Utah. But for you, though, was that an easy decision? Did you have a relationship with some of the coaches here? Did you know some of the guys on the team?
I knew some of the coaches. As soon as I kind of made the process to leave, I had some connections. Definitely my cousin that was here, Anton Palapoy, and just talking through him had helped me make my decision easier to come here, and so there was a little bit of connection. Yeah.
This system fits you, though, right? I mean, this is a good system for you, right?
I love it. It's awesome. I'm glad to be here. I'm just glad to be a part of all this that's going on. So
you played in it for about a year, right? It was a similar system. It's not exactly the same, but pretty similar, right?
Very similar. We just down south they used almost like a bigger linebacker as a nickel, and then the biggest difference was just zone dropping. We match drop here, and they do a lot of quarter dropping, which I had to get really used to. And but I think the matching system is a lot better.
Francis Bernard with us here on the Coaches Show tonight. We played the interception against UCLA coming in. That was the first kind of big splash. So let's go back to last week for a minute. We're 3 series into the game, and then all of a sudden you're standing on the sideline, and Chase gets flagged for personal foul and targeting. You're the next man up. What's going through your head when you see Chase walking up that sideline toward the locker room?
Well, I just didn't know that it was going to happen. I obviously go into every single game prepared as if I'm going to play.
Right.
But just while the game was going on, I'm like, there's no way anything's going to happen. And then he gets the flag, and I'm like, dang, I'm up. And so I just kind of jog out there, and from there I just did my thing. So
I know you know the system. Have you played next to Cody much? I mean, that's the whole thing. The thing that makes a pair of linebackers when there's 2 of you really good or 3 of you out there is that relationship, and that's why Chase and Cody have been so good. You don't have nearly the number of reps next to Cody that Chase does. Is that still comfortable for you?
Yeah, I think practice is probably the biggest thing. I've practiced next to Cody and Chase, and so I think that itself has helped me just, at any given time, if one of them goes down, I can come in and kind of just fill that role and be just as comfortable.
Is it tough to jump in a game like that? I know you guys rotate in, but I think you made it. Was it your first play or second play on the field? I think you got a TFL, didn't you? I
don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was your first or second play there.
Probably,
you jumped
I can't
in.
Remember.
Did you get to game speed pretty quick?
Yeah, it was. I think, just like I said, practice is probably the biggest key factor for it, and preparing has helped me out a ton. But just after my first play, I was like, all right, I just gotta remind myself I could play and just go out and make plays. So
and then it becomes instinctual, right?
Exactly.
196 yards you limited them to. They had 34 yards on 34 rushes. That's a pretty good defensive effort.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. I think that's more credit to the D-line. If you go back and look at the D-line, I think it had 6 sacks that ultimately allowed them to have a lot of negative yards. And you go back watch the film. They played a phenomenal game, so it was fun to watch them play.
That fellow Harriman High guy right in front of you up there. Did you know Lecky much in high school? Was he a lot younger? Had he moved to Utah yet?
He had kind of came to Utah for a little bit, and then moved back to California. I don't know why. And then when I was done with high school, he finally came to Harriman, and then he finished what I started in one state at Harriman. So I can have that bragging right. Those are my guys who won state, but yeah.
You groomed them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the legend of Lecky lives on. Lecky Fotu and John Penasini and Pete Tonga and Howard Pututau, they make your life a lot easier as a linebacker, don't they?
Absolutely. Those are the guys behind the curtains who make it all happen. I feel like they're the guys who don't get enough credit, but they're the reason why Cody and Chase make the plays, and then for me on Saturday, they're the reason why I was able to make all my plays too. So credit to them.
Couple more minutes here with Francis Bernard. We were talking about it with Coach at the beginning. I've said this. I've been around this rivalry for 17 years, and I've seen both sides of it, as a lot of people have. It's one of the most unique in college football. And you're now part of that, too, because you're like a lot of guys in this room and other places. You're now on both sides of it, too. You experienced it on the BYU side. Now you'll experience it here. And I know you've been probably looking forward to this game a little bit this year. What are your feelings heading in Saturday?
I'm excited. I do have some close friends there, and I've kind of relayed some messages back and forth with them, and I'm just I'm pumped to get on the field and display what I got, and ultimately display what our team's about. I think that's the biggest thing that they're not looking for. They don't look at us as they kind of just look at us as a rivalry game, but we're a really dominant team, and I think we'll go out and dominate on Saturday.
Well, I think that's the hope, and this is I think the guys from out of state, Reg is in the back there, and there's some other guys. They don't understand the rivalry if they're from out of state till they experience it for the first time. And I was talking to Jordan Wynn about that today, too. But you grew up here.
Yeah.
So the rivalry was always kind of part of it, too, wasn't
yeah.
it? So
yeah.
the in-state guys is a little extra something, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I just remember, growing up, middle school and high school, there just would be, the divide of kids, wearing blue or kids wearing red. And so I thought that was always crazy. And, yeah, it's a big rivalry.
It's pretty special. This has been a special year so far. Pac-12 South champs for the first time, and it's kind of cool you're in on it now.
Yeah.
This team's pretty well set moving forward, too, Francis. You're part of a machine that's now there's a lot of talent in here. Cody and Chase will be gone next year. You're obviously one of the guys. Who else should we keep an eye on? I know Donovan Thompson's in here, too. Who else might be in that mix with you next year at linebacker?
I think just about everyone. I think Donovan Thompson, has a lot of good skill sets. Devin Lloyd, as well. I think there might be some kids coming in. I think they're just, it's not set in stone, and so whoever can show up during spring can make the impacts, and definitely hopefully fill the spots at linebacker.
Well, have fun this week. Have fun on Saturday night. Let me be the first to say red looks good on you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Francis Bernard with us here on the Coaches Show tonight. We'll take a quick timeout. Come back with a couple of special guests. We'll go behind the scenes with Utah football. A couple of guys that helps this machine roll. We'll talk to Sam Morissette and Keegan Anderson next, right here on the Coaches Show from Learfield. Jalen Johnson got another pick on Saturday. That pressure on that kid Lytle was just a little bit too much. We welcome you back into the Coaches Show tonight. We'll get to our weekly awards coming up. We'll tell you as well that tonight's show and every show brought to you by our friends at Nissan. They bring you the drive of the game. Nissan knows game day is all about the game-winning drive, so Rogue has the available technologies that'll help the day's best drive get to the stadium. Nissan's a proud supporter of college athletics. We've been doing this kind of the behind-the-scenes, the folks that kind of make this machine run behind the scenes for the last few weeks, and tonight we've got the two assistant directors of player personnel with us here on the show tonight, Sam Morset and Keegan Anderson. Guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Doing great. So let's talk about backgrounds. Sam, what brought you to Utah? Where are you from? What brought you to Utah?
I'm from Southern California, Ventura County, and I came up here. I love sports my whole life. I studied sports management in college, and came up for an internship, volunteered, worked for free, and move up from there. And it's been an awesome experience every step of the way. I love it.
Did you have any knowledge, have any ties, anything whatsoever with the University of Utah when you came up this direction?
My father-in-law knew Freddie Whittingham from the childhood. They grew up together, were friends, and that was a tie to get my foot in the door. And then from there, kind of mixture of a lot of hard work and some luck with some job openings.
And of course, Keegan Anderson is here. You are completely the opposite of Sam. You know a little bit about Utah football. Of course, Keegan's dad, Gary, has been a stalwart and a coach here for many, many years. But how did you get back here? I mean, obviously, your dad's back on staff, but how did you get back and in this role right now?
So after I got done playing, I just kind of went into the role of trying to follow in the footsteps of my dad and GA'd up at Wisconsin with him, and then followed him up to Oregon State and GA'd there, and then a spot opened up in operations up there, and I took took the assistant director of football operations job up there at Oregon State, and then all the stuff happened up at Oregon State, and didn't know where I was going to go. I called Rudy and asked him if they had any type of volunteer or anything that they wanted or opening over here, and volunteered, and just like Sam said, luck happened, and I kind of worked my way into the spot that I'm in now.
And by the way, Rudy is Jeff Rudy. He's the director of football operations here for the University of Utah, and does a lot of good stuff. We got to get him on here at some point in time too. We'll get Rudy on, but so both of you guys, player personnel. You guys work a lot on the recruiting side of things, don't you? I mean, player personnel is a term that was used a lot on the pro side. That's colleges have begun to utilize that too. But a lot of what you guys do is on the recruiting side, right, Sam?
Yes. Yeah. I specifically work with the offensive side of the ball, Keegan defense. So my focus is to make sure our offensive coaches don't forget about recruiting, and they make it easy for me because they do a great job with coaching, but also making sure that we have a future with some great players.
Keegan, walk us through a day in the life of you and Sam and Reggie Dunn and all the folks in the player personnel department. What's kind of a day in and day out or week in and week out look for you guys?
Just trying to find guys that are under the radar, or trying to find guys that we need to hop on and evaluate. And so Sam and I have kind of two guys that are kind of underneath us that kind of are assigned to specific coaches that will search around in different states and just try and find guys. And it's all just, hey, I found this guy, watch this guy, and then we'll kind of push, and then each guy kind of we'll find a guy that they really like, and they'll start pushing, and it's kind of fun to see who likes one guy and with different opinions, and before we start pushing them to the coaches, and then once we get them to the coaches, then they'll evaluate them and kind of take it into their hands of if we want to keep going and evaluating them and push them to offer them or not. So
is the tougher part of that, Sam, finding the guys, or is it getting, selling them, those guys that you guys find, to the coaches to get that process going?
It's a mixture.
Yeah.
I'll say finding.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
Yeah, it's both both things are a challenge, and that's what makes this job so fun.
I would guess, and you guys haven't been in your positions a long time, but I would guess Utah now is much more of a name to kids that you're reaching out to, especially West Coast kids, than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were growing up, when you were coming, watching a lot of games and being part of the program. Is that fair to say you guys have much more of a name now on the West Coast than you did before?
I think so. I think, and that's a testament to what Coach Whittingham's brought to this program, that there's a name and it's recognizable, and it's now winning Pac-12 South championships. So.
What does rivalry week mean to you, Keegan Anderson?
It's a big week. I grew up just a straight Ute, and I have respect for the team down south, but I've always been one-sided, and even when I went to Utah State, it was all about the rivalry. We brought it in, and it wasn't that big of a rivalry, and then we made it competitive, so it was a rivalry again up there. So it's just, I've always disliked BYU, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's the way I grew up, and so.
How about you, Sam? You're relatively new to the rivalry. What's rivalry? You've been around the program a year and a half now. What's rivalry week mean to you?
Yeah, I've been around the program, like you said, a year and a half. I've known about the rivalry, though, my whole life. And it's, to me, I was a part of the game last year. So I was here last season, and it was, the environment is incredible. And I'm looking forward to this weekend environment with the crowd, how excited they're going to be. But it's just fun is how I should put it.
Yeah, I love it. I've been around it for a long time, too. And this week will be a little bit different than the last few years because it'll be senior day. And that's how it used to be, and now it'll kind of be back there again. So it'll be really those 11 guys and their last chance to run out on that field against their rivalries.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thanks for coming by, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Keep up the hard
thank you.
work. Good to see you. We'll talk again.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
All right,
Appreciate
there you go. Sam and Keegan with us here, our assistant directors of player personnel here at the University of Utah. We'll come back with our weekly awards and talk a little BYU straight ahead with Kyle Whittingham on the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show, presented by Smith's, right here from Learfield. That's Jalen Dixon, and that was one of two long connections between the Lone Star High Frisco, Texas duo. And I think that leads us perfectly, Kyle Whittingham, into our Team Player of the Week presented by University of Utah Health and Sports Medicine.
It does. And we, defensively it could have been Bradley and I or Max Tapai, our set of ends that played outstanding. In fact, it was Max's best game as a Ute. And he was just dominant, and as well as Bradley on those edges. But Jalen Dixon, with well over 100 yards of receptions and big touchdown catch and another long ball, and then a few in between, was just his best game as a Ute as well. So it's good to see these guys performing. And best thing about Jalen, he's just a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman, and he's got a lot of years ahead of him.
Subway Sub of the Week going to be who?
It's going to be a no-brainer there. It's Francis Bernard, who we just had on the show. Obviously, he came in early in the game. Chase went down with that penalty, or went out with that penalty, I guess you should say. Second series, and Francis came in. We didn't miss a beat. He promptly had a tackle for loss. It was one of the first plays he was in there, and ended up making a bunch of tackles, and he led our team in tackles.
Yeah, he was fantastic. 10 tackles for loss. So the Subway Sub of the Week, presented by Subway, the official training restaurant of the Utes, is Francis Bernard. One quick question before we take our final timeout. John Lalonde emailed me this today. So, John, thank you. He wants to know if there may be a bigger role or bigger things on the way in coming weeks for T.J. Green.
Well, the more productive he is, the more he plays, and that's true with anybody on the team. When you get your opportunity, if you produce and do things the right way, and how you're coached to do it, which TJ has done a great job of. He's, from where he is now to where he was, say, a year ago, is night and day, and he's really becoming a good player for us. And he had a big contribution in last week's game, and he is really starting. Light switch is starting to go on for TJ.
You got a lot of guys that's starting to happen for,
which is a good thing. Yeah, and, those two young tight ends, Fotheringham and Keithy, true freshmen, and of course Jason Shelley's a freshman, and Max Tapai is a sophomore, and Mika Tafua is a freshman. There's a lot of good young players in this program right now.
No doubt about it. Our game week sponsor this week is our friends at Deseret First Credit Union, the exclusive sponsor of the Deseret First Dual Rivalry. You can trust the mortgage team at Deseret First to get you into a game-winning mortgage. Membership and eligibility required. An equal housing lender. Find them online at dfcu.com or just call Trina Anderson for anything that you might need. Final timeout. Back with a couple of thoughts on BYU before we wrap it up. This is the Kyle Whittingham Show from Learfield. got into the Act 2 on Sunday. Back in short time left in the show tonight. Give me a quick thought on BYU's Zach Wilson, the young quarterback.
Yeah, he's obviously a true freshman, big arm. He can make all the throws. He's got some mobility to him. And, when they made that change, it gave a little spark to their offense. And he's had a pretty good year so far.
What stands out about their defense? They seem to be good against the run.
Yeah, very sound. They're in the right spot at the right time. They fit the run well. They're usually in good position on routes up the field and coverage. And so, just disciplined and where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there.
We have a special guest in the audience here at the Coaches Show tonight. Your guys here,
Drew Johnson. Yeah, Drew Johnson, one of the best. Let's just say the best manager in all of college football. He's on a little sabbatical right now.
Yeah.
He's taking some downtime. But Drew, we love you, buddy.
Drew, good to see you, and thanks to everybody who listened in tonight. For Kyle Whittingham and for our entire crew here, we'll see you Saturday night for BYU in Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium and right here from Learfield. Good night.